Welcome back, guys, gals, and those of unspecified gender. This here is part 2 of our What If Smash Ultimate had DLC costumes series. For those of you who may not have seen part 1, just a brief rundown of what we're doing here. We are breaking down the Smash Ultimate roster into the newcomers for each entry in the series: Smash 64, Melee, Brawl, Smash 4, and Ultimate, and giving each character one new DLC costume, or at least what I would give them if I were in charge of making that decision. So, for those of you who may have missed the last video, just kind of a quick breakdown of how this is working. Each character for the specified game, with this being part 2, that would be Melee, I'm going to discuss possible ideas that I would have given as alternate skins if Smash Ultimate decided to do what every other fighting game does and give every character a DLC costume. Just a quick note, I am going to try my best to avoid anything along the lines of simple recolors or completely different characters, just because I feel like that, well, for recolors, we have a million recolors already. I don't want to say like, oh yeah, Nintendo should have made people pay for an extra recolor. And for other characters, I don't know, I just feel like that kind of isn't as fun. So I'm trying to stick to primarily the same character. With that said, seeing as we're on Melee and we're just kind of going in order, the first character that we've got is actually Princess Peach. Now Peach is interesting because she does have a few sort of costumes that you can work with. One of the first that came to mind actually was Peachette. And Peachette, the main reason I didn't go with that as my main idea is, again, going back to the baselines that I set up, Peachette is technically a different character. That, and it's also very similar to base Peach. And I feel like there'd be some confusion there. You'd run into like a Pac-Man situation where multiple people play the same character and you sort of lose track. So maybe we'll pass on Peachette. Another one that did immediately come to mind, though, was actually Biker Peach from Mario Kart. Biker Peach, while it would be cool, I feel like wouldn't quite work with the way that Peach is set up, because some of her moves actually do, like, use the dress as, like, certain aspects of the move. Things with, like, her float, Toad jumping out of the dress, things like that. I feel like it would just work better if we could still keep Peach in a dress. So, for that reason, not going with Biker Peach either. My actual choice for what I would give a DLC skin for Peach is actually Shadow Queen. Some of you may know Shadow Queen as being one of the skins, or not a skin, a different version of Peach from one of the Paper Mario games. If I'm recalling correctly, I believe it's Thousand Year Door. Shadow Queen here is the final boss for Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door. So I would actually say Shadow Queen is kind of a good one to go with because it's very different from most of the other Peach skins, giving more of a sinister vibe. Plus, it's a reference to Paper Mario, and who don't love Paper Mario? We all love Paper Mario. That's why Nintendo is giving us a remake of Thousand Year Door. So, if Peach were to get a DLC skin, I say it should be based on Shadow Queen from Paper Mario Thousand Year Door. Coming up next on our Smash Melee roster, we got the big boy himself, the king of the Koopas. We got your boy Bowser. And Bowser has a bunch of good options. First off, going along the lines of one of Mario's old skins that's already in the game, I was thinking maybe we could go with Wedding Bowser from Mario Odyssey. It's honestly just really fun. Bowser wearing a wedding suit with a top hat. I think it could be really cool. But I do feel there is also some better options for Bowser. Another one that immediately jumped to my mind because of how much I loved playing this game back on the DS is Dark Bowser from Bowser's Inside Story. But similar to like Peachette, Dark Bowser is technically a different character. So for that reason, as much as I love Dark Bowser, holy hell, this guy looks cool as shit, we're gonna pass on Dark Bowser. What I actually would give Bowser as a DLC skin should come as a surprise to literally nobody. Dry Bowser. Come on, Nintendo. Give us more Dry Bowser. You put him in Mario Kart. You put him in Super Mario Bros. Put him in Smash. It just works. So, yeah, DLC costume for Bowser. Easiest choice in the book. Dry Bowser. Now, for one of the first characters that I genuinely had a very hard time trying to find anything for. The Ice Climbers. Sticking to my ideals on avoiding recolors or alternate characters for the Ice Climbers is basically impossible, seeing as they have one game to their name and it's in 8-bit. Not a whole lot to work with there. So what I actually wound up thinking of, thanks to Cold Pizza on Game Banana for the idea, was a Mario and Luigi themed skin for the Ice Climbers that sort of recolors their parkas to look like Mario and Luigi's overalls. I just think that would be kind of a fun reference to like the Mario Bros being, you know, bros, and the fact that the Ice Climbers work as a pair. Plus, once again, I just really could not think of anything for the Ice Climbers. If you guys have any better ideas, feel free to throw them in the comments. I would love to see some better ideas for the Ice Climbers, but quite frankly, this was the best I could come up with. Someone a little easier, though, was Sheik. So, Sheik's outfit in Ultimate is sort of a weird hybrid of two different outfits. It's sort of based a little on her Twilight Princess appearance, but the outfit is also kind of based on the stealth suit from Zelda Breath of the Wild. So with that said, I was thinking there's a couple options there, one of which would be like Ocarina of Time, Sheik's original appearance. That's fine. Ocarina of Time is cool design for Sheik, it's, you know, classic. But I do think that something that would work a little better and have a little more variety to it would actually be something along the lines of maybe the Hyrule Warriors skin for Sheik. I just feel like it's got a little more flair to it, and it stands out a little more from the base outfit. So, Sheik's DLC skin, Hyrule Warriors. It's just a good look. Zelda, by comparison, actually was significantly harder to narrow down some good options for, because she just has so many. An obvious choice would be to maybe bust out one of her previous game appearances, like the Zelda outfit from Melee, or even the one from Brawl and Smash 4 based on Twilight Princess, or even just bringing in the Breath of the Wild outfit for Zelda. However, Sakurai did say the reason they didn't go with that version of Zelda in Smash is because she's not really a fighter, so for that reason, we're going to discount Breath of the Wild, and we're also going to discount Twilight Princess Zelda and Melee Zelda. I forget which game Melee Zelda was based on. I'll put it in post. But some other options would be potentially Skyward Sword Zelda. However, I do feel Skyward Sword Zelda kind of falls into the same category of Breath of the Wild Zelda, as not really much of a fighter, not a whole lot of combat potential there. So, gonna avoid Skyward Sword Zelda too. And I think we're gonna go along the same lines as Sheik and say Hyrule Warriors Zelda. Because Hyrule Warriors Zelda is a badass. She looks cool as hell. She got that nice little tiara going on. She got a bow. Hyrule Warriors Zelda is just peak combat Zelda. So, DLC skin for Zelda, you gotta go with the one from the Musou game. Those games are literally all about fighting. Come on, it writes itself. Now, for Dr. Mario, our next character on the list, Doc, I'ma be honest, I didn't have anything. I kind of could not find anything good as like an alt skin for Doc specifically. However, what I think would work would maybe be something along the lines of Mario's scientist outfit from Mario Odyssey. Gives similar vibes to Dr. Mario, and the proportions are the same because they're both Mario. So I think pulling an outfit from Mario in Mario Odyssey and applying it to Doc, it works. So I'm going to say if Doc were to get a DLC skin, Scientist Mario from Mario Odyssey would be the way to go. However, Pichu, being our next character on the list, runs into a similar problem of the Ice Climbers. There's not much to work with. One of my initial thoughts was maybe to go with Ukulele Pichu from Pokemon Ranger. But the problem there is the ukulele would kind of get in the way of some of Pichu's animations. So I don't think that would work super well. So not gonna go with Ukulele Pichu. I did actually find some fan art on Twitter. Still not calling it X, Elon. You could fight me on that. And thank you to Kike on Twitter for posting this fan art of Pichu wearing a Mimikyu type costume. And I just think that is adorable. And also a fun little reversal of the Mimikyu likes to look like Pikachu. Well, now we got a Pichu who wants to look like Mimikyu. I think it's adorable. Pichu doesn't really give you a whole hell of a lot to work with anyways. So I think maybe Pichu wearing a Mimikyu costume could be fun. Falco as our next character on the list though, and Falco also doesn't give you much to work with. Beginning to notice a trend here with the melee characters. Falco, really the only skin that I could find as like an alternate costume for Falco that could sort of work is actually Falco from Star Fox Assault. All the characters in Star Fox Assault did sort of get different costumes. So I think Star Fox Assault's costume for Falco could work pretty well as an alternate skin. There's just not a whole lot to work with for the Star Fox characters though. Someone who did give me a little bit more to work with, though, is actually our next entry, and that is the Crown Prince from Fire Emblem. That's right, we are talking Marth. Marth, I actually did manage to find two, and I was a little torn between these two options, but ultimately I did have to go with the latter. But honorable mention to Groom Marth, or Wedding Marth, from Fire Emblem Warriors, or no, not Fire Emblem Warriors, whatever the mobile game is, I forget the name. But yeah, there's Wedding Marth, or Groom Marth, from the Fire Emblem mobile game, where he's in an all-white outfit that does look slightly different from his default look. However, the reason I did decide ultimately against this one is because we already have a white palette swap for Marth, and I feel like that's too similar. So we're going to pass on Groom Marth, and instead, we're going to go with Anime Marth from Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE. That's right, it's Shin Megami Tensei Marth. The outfit is admittedly very similar to the default Marth outfit, but with the fun aura and the glowy hair, I think it would just be a neat addition. So ultimately for Marth, we are going to give it to Tokyo Mirage Session, or as I call it, Shin Megami Tensei Marth. Next up though, we have Young Link. Young Link doesn't also give you much to work with. Once again, noticing a trend with the melee characters. But I did find one for Young Link that I think could work pretty well and still references an existing game in the Legend of Zelda series that, interestingly enough, does not seem to have any sort of existing reference in Smash. And that would be the Link to the Past Link with the pink hair. Yes, I know Link to the Past Link isn't technically Young Link, but without doing this, there's really not much else that I can try to find for Young Link. Plus, Link to the Past just doesn't really get any representation in Smash, and I think that would be a fun way to sort of bring in a Zelda game that the guys over at Nintendo seem to have kind of forgotten, if we're being honest. However, going from Young Link, who gave me almost nothing to work with, our next entry is Ganondorf. Ganondorf was hard to narrow down, because similar to Zelda, there are just so many good options for Ganondorf. An obvious contender for Ganondorf would be his Twilight Princess appearance that we had back in Brawl and Smash 4. Unlike Zelda, we actually don't need to bring back his melee appearance because that's kind of the one that we got already. So we don't really need to consider that one. So I did consider potentially bringing back the Twilight Princess design from Brawl and Smash 4. But for similar reasons to Zelda, I didn't want to reuse a previous design and charge people for it. So another option that I did think of that would be kind of cool and still at least mostly fit the Ganon mold and model that we have already was Hyrule Warriors Ganon. But I avoided using Hyrule Warriors Ganon as my pick for reasons being I already picked Hyrule Warriors Sheik and Hyrule Warriors Zelda. I didn't want to just use Hyrule Warriors for all the Zelda characters. So, based purely on the fact that it existed by the time I was making this video, I am actually going to go with Tears of the Kingdom Ganon as my vote for DLC skin for Ganondorf. It's sick as hell. They could even possibly get Matt Mercer to come in and do some voice lines for it. And it would have like the different swords too. Like it would be a really cool skin if they really went in and did the details on it. Plus, people love a good thirst trap, and my god, were people thirsty for Tears of the Kingdom Ganondorf. So, Ganon, obvious choice there. I gotta give it to Tears of the Kingdom, especially since that skin now exists by the time that I was making this video. That said, if I were to have made this before Tears of the Kingdom released, I'd probably give it to Hyrule Warriors Ganondorf too. Now, Mewtwo being our next character on the list, I did run into some options for Mewtwo, but I had a really hard time trying to narrow it down. Trying to stick primarily to things that exist from the games, the obvious choice there for a DLC skin for Mewtwo would probably be something along the lines of Shadow Mewtwo from Pokken. Honestly, nothing against Shadow Mewtwo from Pokken. It's a cool look, but being somebody who's a big fan of the Pokemon anime, I cannot in good conscience not choose Armored Mewtwo from Pokemon the first movie. It is such a good look for Mewtwo. It's, at this point, almost synonymous with the character. Like, if you think Mewtwo, you're gonna think of, like, the actual Pokemon, and then that armor from Pokemon the first movie. And, no, I'm not going to be talking about the armor from the CG remake. I don't care for how that looks. So, no, we're not even entertaining the thought. So, going to kind of break my own self-imposed limitations of trying to stick to the games here. I'm giving Mewtwo's DLC slot to Armored Mewtwo from Pokemon the first movie. It's too good to pass up. Now, going from a character who I had multiple good options for and basically knew immediately what I was getting into, and I'm not gonna lie, might have been a little bit of the inspiration for this series. Our next choice is Roy, and I had to do some research here. Roy does not give you a whole hell of a lot to work with. Going back to some of our previous entries on this list, my immediate thought did come to his skin from Melee, which is decidedly more simple than the one that we got in Smash 4 and Ultimate. But again, I don't want to reuse a skin from a previous game. So instead, I think that we could actually go with the Roy outfit that we got as a extra character in Fire Emblem Awakening. It's got a different style to it, looks a little more elegant than battle ready. But I still think Awakening Roy, it's a fun look. It's different enough to warrant being the pick for Roy's DLC slot. And now for perhaps the hardest character out of everyone from Melee, Mr. Game & Watch. Oh boy, was Mr. Game & Watch a pain in the ass. So, being somebody who did at least somewhat live through the 90s, one of the first things that kind of came to my mind as a fun little reference was sort of recoloring Game & Watch to look like the AOL logo. As you can see here in this art that was done by Chaos Kid over on Game Banana, where you just have like the black outline and the yellow fill. But that's not referencing anything aside from AOL, and I still wanted to at least somewhat keep this related to gaming, or at least, you know, tangentially related to the character themselves. The problem is, Game & Watch doesn't give you much to work with. They kind of already used most of the colors that were used for Game & Watch things for the existing Game & Watch recolors. But I did find an idea, again from Game Banana, thank you to Xerxid, apologies if I mispronounced that, for a Miiverse themed Mr. Game & Watch. And granted, Miiverse doesn't mean a whole hell of a lot anymore since the Miiverse system is shut down, but it is still a thing that exists, and hell, Nintendo even gave it a stage back in Smash 4, if y'all remember that. So I think having a Miiverse themed Game & Watch with the green outline and white fill would be a fun way to reference that, especially seeing as we didn't get the return of the Miiverse stage in Ultimate, since by that time Miiverse was kinda dead. But with Mr. Game & Watch, that is actually the end of the Melee roster. Let me know what you guys think of my choices for Smash Melee's characters' DLC skins. If you have any better ideas or some honorable mentions that you feel I should have included, do feel free to drop those in the comments. And keep an eye out in the future for the next video in this series, which is going to be covering the roster for Brawl. Admittedly, now we're going to start getting into the characters that I spent a little bit more time playing, since Brawl was my first Smash game. So I'm very excited for this next part. But if you guys have any comments, concerns, or just want to say hi, feel free to throw something in the comments. And until then, this has been Mr. E-Man 5112, and I'll catch y'all next time.